Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of If I'm Being Honest. Do you ever find yourselves missing a version of who you once were, and that version being someone you know you can't go back to? I think it's not talked about enough about how painful it is to outgrow yourself. Being in your 20s, I think it's normal that you outgrow situations, you outgrow people, jobs, maybe even your country. But there is a certain pain, I guess, that comes with outgrowing yourself and the person who you once were. Lately, I've been thinking about how many versions of me existed, of my friends, especially as well. Like when I see the people my friends have become and the versions of them I used to know, it's like you can barely even recognize them sometimes. There have been so many versions of myself that have existed and so many different people who I thought I was. And at some point in my 20s, I've had to let go of every single one of them. Your 20s is all about growing, and you become a person that sometimes you wouldn't have even recognized, but a version of yourself that you're proud you have become. And that's growth. But we don't just grow in our 20s, we also outgrow, and a lot of the times we outgrow ourselves. And no one really talks about this part of outgrowing yourself and how it doesn't always feel super empowering, and it doesn't always feel like it's a fresh new start, or it doesn't feel like a glow up or a new era. Like sometimes it just feels like a loss, like you lost yourself. You look back at who you used to be, and there's a part of you that misses that person, and you know you could never be her again, and for different reasons, for example. And this growth that I'm talking about, I think it comes with grief a little bit as well. I think being in your 20s is a lot of grief as well. You grieve a lot of things, and you also grieve this growth a little bit. And that's important. It's important to grow, and it's important to let go of some versions of yourself that maybe weren't the nicest as well. But there are also these versions of yourself that you wish maybe you could go back to. For me, for example, I grieve the version of myself that loved without fear. That love, or the way you love before you first get your heart broken, and the way the person who doesn't overthink so much, the person who trusts people easily because you've never been bitten, so you don't know what it's like, so you just do it effortlessly. And I think the biggest one is the version of yourself who didn't know heartbreak yet. And maybe it feels a bit like I'm not saying I want to go backwards, and I'm not saying I want to be that same person again, because I think with experiencing these things, and with maybe not with overthinking, but with experiencing love, with experiencing heartbreak, you grow and you learn so much. And I'm all about growing, and I'm all about learning. I think knowledge is key, but there comes a part that no one prepares you for when you do grow up, and when you do grieve, and you let go of these versions that you once were, and you outgrow people that you never thought you would walk through life without them. And you outgrow patterns. Some of them are good, maybe some of them are bad, and you end up outgrowing you outgrow things you once thought were everything to you, and you thought they were your whole life. And probably when you're outgrowing them, you think that it might feel a bit like of the end of the world, like the same feeling of heartbreak. But then once you do outgrow them, and once you become this new person and this new version of yourself, you kind of think like, how did I even do that before? And you have to learn a new reality, and that's the new reality without those people, those patterns, and without yourself as well, because you have let that shit go, and that's in the past, way in the past. And this can be a bit confusing, because how can something that felt so right at one point feel so distant now? And I believe in that, I don't really believe in putting something down that was right before. Because it was what you wanted at that point. It's just now that, you've grown up, and maybe you see things a bit differently. Maybe you're a bit more mature. You've outgrown it. But just because something was right before, it doesn't mean it still is. And it's okay to let that go. And, changing is hard. And I don't know, I don't really believe people change, and as in people change, but they changed when like there's nothing else left to do except that. But I think it's very hard to not go back to what's so familiar, and becoming comfortable with a new version, with a new reality is extremely, extremely hard. And we don't talk about it enough because it's so much easier, and it's so tempting to go back to what you know so well. And you don't understand that the way you learned that, you can learn this new version as well. And it's also beautiful, you know, you become someone who thinks so differently, who acts differently, who loves differently, and who sees things differently. And just because it's different, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just going to take some getting used to. And a little bit about like loving differently. I recently had this conversation with my friends, and I told them that there's a certain naivety, if that's a word, that comes with loving for the first time. And I think once you love for the first time and then you get your heart broken for the first time, I don't think you love the same way again. And I kind of had mixed reactions from the statement. Some people were saying that's the point, that you don't love again. Some people the same way. Some people were saying that they don't agree. For me, I see it. This is the way I try to explain it. It's like if you grab a mug the first time, okay, you grab a mug for the first time, and after holding it for a little bit, it starts to burn, and you let it go. And you have a burn and whatever it's called. The next time you're going to hold that mug, or the next time you're going to do that action, you're going to be a bit hesitant. You're going to be a bit reluctant on how you're going to do it, because you know that the first time it burnt you and it hurt really bad. And I think it's the same thing about love. And I think it's what I mean when I say that you let go of a person that went in the first time holding that mug without fear, because you didn't know any better, because you were naive, because you never experienced it. And it's a bit hard to let go and come to terms with the fact that you will always now be hesitant and reluctant to grab love, I guess. And I think that's why it's so uncomfortable, because you're not who you used to be, and you're not fully who you're becoming yet either. You know, like I was such a different person a year ago. I'm a different person now, and probably in a year from now, I'll also be a different person. And I'm not saying like a whole change, you know, like to my core, I'm still the same person. My values are still the same, but you change and you let go of yourself, and maybe you don't even realize it, you know, in search of becoming who you are. I don't think it means you're lost. I don't think it means you're confused. I think it just means you're in between versions maybe right now. And that's also okay. So yes, we do outgrow versions of ourselves, and I think that maybe is the point, that you don't stay the same forever. You have to have the courage to let go of who you are when it's the right time, because every version of who you were or who you are has probably served its purpose. And that version is also the version that you have had to outgrow. And outgrowing doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It's just understanding and realizing that you're turning into a different person. And that's also okay, as long as that person is also a person you want to become. It's normal to change. It's normal to want to do different things. And even though maybe you're changing because of, you know, heartbreak or because of loss or whatever, I think there's still also beauty in those things, and you will also for sure find beauty in the new version of you that you are becoming. See you next week.